The most common request I've gotten for video topics in the last few months is to talk about some or all of the Republican candidates in the presidential race. With a hilarious field of hopefuls, there are certainly plenty of lulz to be had at their expense. I initially resisted this because so many other people have done videos on the topic, but I haven't seen many videos tackling them all at once. So, okay, since the Crocoduck Army has spoken, now's the time. I'm nothing if not responsive to your needs. Let's start with Herman Cain. Oh, Herm, you, sir, were one funny guy, and your presence is missed in the race already. Your command of foreign policy is unmatched. By unmatched, of course, I mean that nobody is as clueless as you are. You didn't even know that China had nuclear weapons. I've known that since I was in 5th grade, Herm. You also weren't sure if Obama was for or against Gaddafi in Libya, which anyone with access to a newspaper or half a brain should have known. I suppose you had other things on your mind, though, like all those allegations of sexual harassment. I think the demonizing of your accusers was actually the nastiest part of that whole thing. Did that pulling her head toward your crotch opening move ever work? Then we have Rick Perry. Rick, you have got to be the most socially awkward candidate in the whole field. It's painful to watch you fumble around for your pre-programmed thoughts. And then you came out with the worst ad of the season where you threw on a Carhartt jacket and talked about entirely non-existent attacks by Obama on by far the majority religion in this country, not to mention Obama's religion. You played the martyr of the majority and contrasted that with your classless depiction of gay people as the great social evil. Which is ironic given how good you are with a corn dog. Rick Santorum is still in the race. I know, you can barely tell and you have to look at the polling charts with a magnifying glass to see his support, but he's still around. Rick, unless you become the new flavor of the month between now and the Iowa caucuses coming up, you will once again pull low to mid single digits. It's just hard to get your own party to vote for you when your own state's voters tossed you out of the Senate. Your statements comparing homosexuality to incest and bestiality were pretty awful, even by conservative standards. I find it hilarious what comes up when your last name is Googled, which was a direct result of that stance. I almost feel sorry for you, Rick. But how do you feel sorry for someone who carries the torch of bigotry so proudly? Then there's Newt, the current frontrunner of the month. Newt, your name and your hair are both epic. That enormous wave of gray covering that gigantic head of yours has been a fixture in politics for years. You're no fool, Newt, and in fact you're a shrewd, cutthroat political operative. But of course you generally use it for purposes and causes that I could never support. The powerful love you, though, and you love the powerful, so I know whose side you'll be on in every fight. I don't even particularly care about what happened with you and your ex-wives, except when you're scolding Clinton for something that you've been doing for years, that's called hypocrisy, and we could do with less of that. I actually give you credit for being the only candidate honest enough to admit that rounding up illegal immigrants and sending them home in boxcars isn't a real solution. But from the party that cheers people dying from lack of health care in a debate, I guess it's not surprising. And they have the nerve to call Democrats the party of death. It's easy to forget Ron Paul. Despite a fan base that's more ravenous than a pack of truthers, everyone knows that he doesn't have a chance. Ron, you have a head that would fit perfectly on a gnome from World of Warcraft, and in a job where, let's face it, appearance is at least somewhat important, that's a problem. Combine that with your obsession with the Fed and the gold standard, not to mention being yet another creationist in the primary, and you have Joker written all over you. You have a couple issues I generally agree with you on, but that's not nearly enough for me to take you seriously. You're also not a flip-flopper, but given most of your positions, that's not a compliment. Let's see how many Ron Paul supporters will find this video and get angry. Then there's the most familiar face in the campaign, Mitt Romney. Mitt is clearly the best chance for Republicans to beat Obama based on every poll I've ever seen, yet they're falling over themselves to try to make sure it doesn't happen. Mitt, I know you're going to be on the side of business 100% of the time, so even if you change your stance on social issues to whatever's convenient, which you certainly do, they should love you more than they do. Let's face it, these days even Reagan wouldn't be orthodox enough to them, and they see Huntsman as practically a Democrat, so it's no surprise you're having trouble. I find it funny how much flack you're taking for being a Mormon from people that believe in things that aren't any more plausible. I'd vote for a Mormon more readily than a lot of your fellow Christians would. Of course, I'm just selfishly hopeful they'll bring back polygamy. Ah yes, last but not least, the lovely Michele Crazy Eyes Bachmann. You were the flavor of the month back in August, but have since faded. That Devils in the Details joke about Kane's 999 plan upside down was one of the most awkward jokes of the campaign so far. Your husband runs a center for converting gays and has compared them to barbarians, which I find hilarious given that everyone's gaydar goes off when they hear him speak. He told a right-wing talk show host that he understands how teenagers are confused or at least curious about the same sex or about what they want sexually, like he was. Hey, speak for yourself, Marcus. I knew exactly what I wanted, I just couldn't get it. Then again, maybe you were the one that somehow turned him straight, Michele. You obviously know how to handle a corn dog, too.